In this episode, we talk about fat not being fat. It's not the same fucking thing. It's just called the same thing. Episode over. We're done. I'm just kidding. Just getting started on my coffee. Don't miss this one.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Testicles. Welcome everyone to episode 628 of the Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular swolecast, beardcast, broadcast, gamecast, and mancast in the realm, because I am the hairiest beast you've ever seen, and when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Welcome everyone to episode 628. Instagram was being a little quirky as always, so we are live now, thankfully. I didn't want to leave you hanging if I didn't have to. We're live on Facebook and Instagram, so make sure you say what's up, make sure you hit the share button, mash the like button, say hi to old Papa Swolio. Today, we are going to discuss a little bit about fat. It's going to be some generalities, but it's going to drop. It's going to drop some nukes, man. It's going to drop some psychological fucking nukes, because I want to get you thinking a little bit differently about fat and what fat means in the diet. Because as we well know today, and we'll build upon yesterday, where we talked about, being a vegetarian, being a vegan, and these extreme dieting principles. And let's talk a little bit about what is optimal for the human body and what is being shown in more and more research and from, indigenous tribes and the way people feel. Because a lot of you that I've been talking to, based on these posts on Instagram and Facebook about, doing these extreme diets and whether or not you've done ketosis and whether or not you've done veganism, and depending on what your personal experience with all of those things are, a lot of you have literally reported that you just feel better. You feel better when you eat meat. You feel better when you eat fat. And that's a very normal thing, because it's normal for the human body. And yesterday we discussed the moral dilemma that we have in this country and the need to be vindicated, the need to be right, the defensive nature that we really hook into these ideologies. And one of the interesting concepts that we discussed yesterday is, I should say, the religious implications of sticking to one of these diet plans, and how being a vegan or being a vegetarian or, paleo, it's like a religion, because we've swapped out traditional religion more for these types of beliefs. So it's the same kind of belief system that people hold dear to their heart, that we protect with anger and with violence, and just like we defend off, when it's really just a discussion of facts. Right? It's really just a discussion of facts. It's a discussion of how the human body is developing, what we are learning over time, what we know now that we didn't know then, how our body really works, as opposed to what's been created in public policy and what's been told to us by the government for decades, which is completely incorrect. So there's a lot of new truths coming to the surface. And one of the beautiful things, I can't show you my phone because I'm on both of them, but it's the internet. It's the interwebs and our ability to have this conversation, because you might not see it in the USDA food pyramid and them trying to pump grains down your fucking throat, but you are going to hear it here, and it's going to open your mind, and you have the ability now to research this stuff yourself. You have the ability now to find out the truth, to learn more about the human body and why we evolved and how consuming animal fats is not bad for us. And of course, the type of fat is important, meaning that, healthier animals are important, but it's a natural part of evolution. It's a natural part of our nutrition to get a lot of fat. It's just natural. That's why extreme high fat diets like keto and a lot of these, high fat consumption diets actually help prevent disease, reverse diabetes. There's a lot of proof that shows that high fat dieting actually changes and can reverse a lot of these illnesses. And, previously thought incurable issues, that's dealing with blood sugar, it's dealing with insulin, such as diabetes, which just has shot up dramatically. over the course of like the last century, you know, from like 1 in like 10 or 100 to like 1 in 3. You know, there's no reason why we should have an obesity problem, right? So when we have access to all these foods, we have access to all these foods. We have a supermarket. We have access to all the information. We have access to a lot of things. We have access to a lot of information, period. We have a lot of access to bad information, but we have to realize how to sift through the information. We have to learn how to be objective and how to not get emotionally attached to information. And that's one of the problems with a lot of science. That's the problem with human nature. And I just want to clarify a couple of those things, because the same way where we might have a argumentative or a debate here or in the comments or on Instagram, you know, veganism is this, or, you know, eating animals is the devil, like save the planet and all this shit. But where are these interests coming from? Like these same human interests and the same defense, the same moral defense, the same type of, you know, this is my team, this is my flag, I'm right, you're wrong. This is evident. This is evident even in science, unfortunately. Science is supposed to be completely objective, not subjective at all. But a lot of what has been done, a lot of the research that's been done, and a lot of what has come out in the industry is very subjective. It's based on interests. It's based on who has the money, who is funding the studies, and which studies should be shown. Because what we're finding from journalists and from people that are digging through all these records, because there's thousands of studies. I want to make that clear. It's not like, oh, let's just go look for the answer here in this box. Okay. It's not, oh, there's probably an answer over here. We're talking about thousands of medical studies that are done all the time. So not only have a lot of these studies actually been done to show that fat is not bad for you. You know, even when these things have been done, it's still a matter of, are they going to get published in a journal? Are they going to make it to the surface? Are you going to hear about it? And that is just as important, because you can keep a lot of people quiet by saying, yeah, here, we're, you know, do this study, blah, blah, blah. But if it doesn't get published in a magazine, think about what those journals meant. You didn't have PubMed. You didn't have the internet back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and barely the 90s. You didn't have access to this. If you didn't order the journal, if you weren't a subscribing member, if you weren't in the community, if you didn't have access, I mean, how many of you had a medical journal delivered to your house and you weren't a doctor? No one. No one did. We didn't have access to that kind of material. Only people in that circle did. So if you didn't get published, your study didn't mean shit. It didn't mean shit. You did all the work, you did all the research, you might have proven something, you might have, you know, brought up a new hypothesis, but none of your stuff got shown to the public. None of your stuff got out there because it didn't get published. So you could still be segregated, prejudiced, you could still be silenced, essentially, by just not getting published. And it wouldn't have gotten the attention. Maybe a few people would have read it and be like, wow, we should test this. But it wouldn't get out to the public. It wouldn't get to the people that really matter the most, because we're the ones that are subject to hearing, oh, don't eat this, you know, don't eat, you know, low fat this, keep your cholesterol down, blah, blah, blah. And we're finding out that's a bunch of horse shit. That's not bad for you. That's not bad for you. Human beings run on fat. We're fat burning machines. So I want you to realize that your body knows. And some of you can comment below. A lot of you have done this. A lot of you have done the vegan, the vegetarian. You've done complete plant-based, and you've left it, and you've come back to eating a balanced diet. You've come back to eating more fat. You found it hard to get a high-fat approach in your diet. You suffered from illnesses or issues because you're eating highly inflammatory foods. You're eating fucking grass. Like, we're not designed to eat grass. I'm sorry, fam. Nothing that I've seen, including common sense, has made me believe that human beings were meant just to fucking eat leaves. We're not koalas. Okay? I just don't see it. I just don't see it from a conceptual point of view. I'm open to it. I'm not saying you can't be healthy doing plant-based or vegan, but I don't think it's certainly required. I think it takes a very fine balance. I think it takes extreme supplementation. I think it takes a unique individual to be able to find a balance that works for them on a health basis. Let's take a couple comments. I'll keep on talking about this, but the concept, and on the board behind me, it says fat is not fat. So before we get into a couple of your questions or comments, the ability to understand that the word fat does not mean fat. And one of the biggest issues us growing up is this doctrine that is just punished into our brains since we're children. And that's the problem with the school system. That's the problem with TV as it was. You'd only get one point of view. And when the government controls things, when the government controls media and those interests control everything, you don't get the whole data. You get what they want to tell you. You get the latest information, which is not the latest information. It's the latest information that they want to say. So when you watch the news, when you watch CNN, when you watch Fox News, it's biased trash. Anytime you watch the news, I don't care who you are. I don't care whether you're a Republican or Democrat. This is not up for debate. This is a fact. It's extremely biased. You are hearing someone's opinion. You're not getting the news. You're not getting what's going on in the world. You're getting the spin, you're getting the emotion, you're getting the facts based around someone's personal agenda. So understand that. That's why I don't watch the news, because it's a load of fucking shit. You can't be a headline reader today because they're all biased. So you have to formulate your own decisions. When you realize that fat is not fat, when you eat a piece of grass-fed beef, for example, and you're consuming animal fat, that fat does not go to your stomach. It's not like that fat is the same as the fat on your body. Fat is what we call the molecule. Fat is what we call the molecule. There's saturated fat, there's unsaturated fat. There are different types based on the molecular structure and the saturation of the molecules, whether or not they're holding more hydrogens. Okay, I'm not going to get into the biology, the chemistry of it right now, but that's what we call a fat molecule. Okay, there's a bunch of glucose molecules, there's a bunch of carbons. It's a long chain, and you have medium chain triglycerides, you have longer chain. It's just different structures. And then when you consume it, your body processes this fat as energy and then does what it needs to do with it. There's a reason why eating fat does not make you fat, because they're not the same thing. We call the extra tissue, the adipose tissue and stuff on our bodies, we call that fat. I'm not sure why they're both called the same thing, because they're two different compounds. There's different structures. They're different. What we eat as fat is not what we want to get off our bodies. It's the same name for two different things. Okay? It's like a boy and a girl having the same name. It's like that Saturday Night Live skit, Pat. You call two different people Pat, or, what's like Alex. Alex is a good name for a boy or a girl. Okay? You have a boy or a girl, you call one Alex, you call the other one Alex. That's a unisex name. But they're obviously two different people. One's a boy, one's a girl. They both look completely different, but they have the same name. That's pretty much what we have the situation with fat. We call fat the same thing molecularly that we do when it's on our body. So we have this negative connotation with the word fat. So that doesn't help. That doesn't help in itself. That doesn't help. So once you separate the fact that one is a molecular structure that is beneficial for the body, and the other one is just extra adipose tissue that is there as a result of inflammation and excessive sugar intake and carbs and stuff like that, you start separating the two and you stop correlating consumption with the actual effect, with causation. And that's not what's been happening. So the research that everything is built upon, that all this, that fat's the devil, and we should be eating more carbohydrates and less fat and less saturated fats. All those studies are based upon these generalizations and these correlations rather than actual causation, actual fact. So the studies that should have been done, that would have proved if it were true, were not done. And if they were proved incorrectly, they were silenced. So there's a lot of bias, and really there's not as much uprise and as much anger and frustration about this as there should be. There's really not enough. Like, this is what has been done to our society, considering all the ones and all the people that you know and love that have died as a result of improper diet advice medically. This goes to hospitals, this goes to doctors, this goes to medications, this goes to everything. Like, literally, the policy that has been told to us of what we should do and what we were guided to do and what we were pushed to do and taught in schools is literally what has been killing us. And the proof is in just like the diseases. The proof is in the autoimmune diseases and how quickly they've risen and how more unhealthy we are today than we ever were. So it's obviously incorrect. And the problem is the government is such one big lurking fucking bumbling machine that everyone's making so much money off this. It's hard to reverse it. So we have to take control of it ourselves. We have to discuss the proper information. I'm going to keep on bringing more of this to light in our nutrition talks, but that's why I consume so much fat. That's why fat's not bad. That's why I'm still lean and I eat a lot of fat. I drink butter in my fucking coffee. I have animal protein. I have coconut oil. I have olive oil. I have avocado. I eat a ton of fat. The fat is not the bad part. The fat is not the bad part. You combine it with exercise, you combine it with reducing stress, you combine it with everything that it should be combined with, and you have a healthy lifestyle. It's just people live healthier when they have all dimensions covered. And it's been shown in tribes too, very like sedentary tribes that have very, very high fat or meat oriented diets. And the lean meat is not where you get the benefits. A lot of people have issues, in these cultures that when there isn't fatty meat available, because in these indigenous tribes, they eat the liver, they eat the organs, which are very fatty. They eat the brains, they eat these very fatty tissues. So we've been like demonizing fat and having meat and cutting all the fat off the meat and having lean cuts of meat. And that's another reason, because we're not getting the fat that we should be getting. So we're eating meat and we're associating these negative consequences with the meat when it's really the fat that we're cutting off the meat that we're avoiding. So there's a lot of shit out there. And what's interesting is that despite, and this is where I talk about responsibility. That's our responsibility to have these discussions. It's our responsibility to have these open conversations on the show and with this content, because the government is not going to do it for us. There are too many interests. But now we have a voice. We have the ability to connect. We have the ability to converse. We have the ability to pass around information and actually have a conversation like this to your cell phone. So there's no excuse now not to have this conversation. And it always sounds different anytime something goes against like the norm and what everyone's saying. There are a lot of experts that are saying this before I did, louder than I did. And they're still, but I'm just going to keep on bringing this stuff to light. And we've had this discussion before. It's always going to seem weird. You're always going to be a castaway. You're always going to be, against the grain, and you're going to be a martyr, and you're going to be seen as, a loony, because you're talking against the establishment. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. And if you grew up with religion in your household, or, Santa Claus, when you grew up believing something, it's very hard to let that go. It's very hard to let those fundamental beliefs in our life go. It really is. And when you step back and you realize how ingrained some of these things in, from religion to demonizing specific food groups, you realize how deep it actually goes. And then you have a little more perspective. You have to, because it goes very, very deep. That's what she said. But it goes very, very deep. It goes very deep in our psyche. It's very hard to unravel that shit. It's very hard to unravel that shit. It really is. So let's take a few comments and questions. And some of these questions, I'm not going to have specific answers because that's individualized. And this all goes back to what I've been saying for days and weeks and months, and since we've been doing these podcasts, is that you need to still need to do an elimination. Still need to figure out which things are inflammatory. It opens up a lot of doors. There's a reason why these high carbohydrate diets are not good, because you can't get the satisfaction. You have to overeat calories to get the same amount of nutrients. You have to overeat calories to get the same amount of protein. You want to try to get the same amount of calories from, protein from beans as you do from steak. You're not going to get the same amount of nutrients. You're going to have to eat way more calories in order to get the same amount of bioavailable protein. It's just, you're setting yourself up for challenges when you're cutting out natural things that the human body is meant to eat. And then you're going to have these conversations where people always try to defend their point. I'm having a discussion. I'm bringing these things to the conversation, to the table. But then you'll have people saying, well, our teeth are not meant to, we don't have the same teeth that a lion does to eat. We don't have to eat raw meat. We cook our meat. We don't need teeth that can eat raw fucking meat. So that's why the teeth are different. We cook our food. So there's these fundamental things, these arguments that are just pulling at straws that don't make sense. They're just trying to defend a point. And until you can prove Like, you have to really have a lot of evidence that goes all one direction that really proves. You can't have anecdotal, you can't have associations, you can't have broad generalizations that prove a fact. Science is always very objective. You cannot tell me something is 100% true pretty much ever. You can never tell anyone that, but you have to really have a mountain of studies and evidence that shows something to really push it as fact. And the base of this whole topic today is that most of the things that we were, told as to be true and that was gospel really didn't have any foundation, any really leg to stand on. So that's the big problem there. That's the big problem. Jay, Swole, send magic. The flu is kicking my ass. Day 4 in bed, bro. Bruh, sorry to hear that, man. How many grams of fats should we be eating? I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there and start giving you a number because your body weight and your level of activity, that's going to vary. But, a high fat diet can range anywhere between, 60 to 80% fats. I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing and seeing great success with. That's what a lot of cultures naturally do. And one of the interesting associations, if you say, okay, for human beings, let's say it's bad to have meat. Well, what about these tribes that are eating like 100% meat? Like these warrior tribes in Africa and stuff that just eat meat. Like they drink blood, they eat organ meat, they eat high fat. Like, what about these people that have no instance of heart disease, that have none of these degenerative diseases as they get older? Of course, we don't, right? As a society, we say meat is bad, or we've been saying meat is bad. We're eating lean cuts of meat. I mean, how many of you eat liver, brains, stomach? How many of you eat the organs of these creatures? Maybe not, very few of you. Okay. Beef liver is like one of the healthiest things you can consume. Grass-fed beef liver is amazing. It's amazing. So, these tribes that do these things, they're getting a lot more nutrients from what they're consuming. They're eating the bones. Like they don't leave things to waste. We waste most of the things. We cut off the fat. We cut off these things. Yeah, and the Inuits, the Eskimos, they eat the organs, they eat the meats. They don't eat vegetables. A lot of tribes, if they have vegetables, if they're consuming vegetables, if they're consuming broccoli or asparagus, that means they're starving. That means there's a famine. That means shit's going south. If they don't have meat, they're eating the bad shit. Most of these people, when they have lean cuts of meat, they give them to the dogs. They eat the fat and they give the lean meat to the dogs. Lean meat. Why do you think at the store, it's interesting, right? Think about this, fam. Even the way society is today, I want you to think about this, right? Things that are good for us, right? Why do you think organic food's more expensive? It's about making money, okay? What kind of cut is more expensive at the supermarket for meat? What's more expensive? If lean meat was really better for you, right? If lean meat was really better for you, wouldn't it be more expensive? Wouldn't lean meat be more expensive if it was better for you? They could charge more because everyone knew it was better. How come when you look at like generic meat, I'm not talking about grass-fed versus grain-fed. I'm just talking about, regular grain-fed, not the high-quality meat, You get like Top Round, really lean. It's like $4 a pound. It's like $4 a pound and it's lean. You want to get a ribeye, you want to get like a skirt steak, you want to get like a strip steak, it's like $13 a pound. It's like 4 or 5 times as expensive. I just want you to think about that. Why? Because it tastes better. Because there's more nutrients in there. It's just higher quality. Yet they're pushing lean meat being the healthier thing. It's just everything's off. Everything's off. Everything's off. There's a reason why it's more, it's better for you. It's better for you to have more fat. We've seen this. How is it possible that people can do extremely high fat diets and lose tons of weight? Because fat is not fat. What you eat does not go on your body. And this is a discussion that we're going to continue to have. And I will bring some research. I'll bring some things to the table, and we'll talk more about this on a technical level because I think all of you are enjoying these. You like these more. I think you're liking these longer, more discussive podcasts because this is how we get to have our conversation. I really want to get a little bit more into these topics. I want this to be a little bit more in depth. I want this to be a little more conversational, and I'm looking to bring a lot more, to bring guests, to bring just more content and more really stuff that I want you to think about throughout the day, but also put into practice and start living a healthier life, because this is something that we control ourselves. This information is something that we control ourselves. And unless we take responsibility for our own health and for understanding and for learning and for exposing these things, we're just pawns. Like, I don't plan on being pushed around like a fucking chessboard. I want to take control. I want to take control of my life. And I feel good. I feel good. Why do you think you feel good when you eat quality meat? Why do you think you feel good when you have fat? Why do you think you feel more satisfied? Your body knows. Your body knows. Oh, I deleted that. I had on the board, I had your body knows. Your body knows. Your body knows what's good and bad. Your body knows. There's a reason why you feel better and you feel different when you eat a more wholesome diet. Okay? There's a reason why animal protein, animal fat is satisfying. Okay? Just think about it more. Think about it more. I'm not demonizing. I don't hate fucking animals. It goes back to yesterday's discussion with how we personify creatures and how consuming an animal does not mean that we're evil things. It does not mean there's any less of a circle of life and a symbiotic relationship. Why do you think these tribes used to have rituals and, they would thank Mother Earth and things like that? And there was a very emotional thing because you raise these animals. It's just, that's life. That's life. And we distance ourselves from life by living in cities and boxes and apartments and closing ourselves off from the truth and reality of nature. We don't live in nature like we used to. That's another thing. We just don't live in nature like we used to. We don't interact with the environment the way we used to. You didn't really have you had cities, back in the day, but still the cities were based on agriculture. You still had people that worked outside the cities, maybe the politicians and the elite were in the city and never worked the fields, but there were a lot more people that worked laborious, and it was a necessary source of food. So after you started bringing grains and shit in, that's when a lot of these diseases started coming in. And that was effective because you would have food in the winter, but doesn't mean because you had food in the winter and you could eat wheat in the winter when there was no food and there was famine, doesn't mean that was the preferred source of food. It's just whatever you had. Survival is the number one thing for human beings. So let's take some questions, have a little more discussion. I just want to open some doors and get some of the juice flowing, so to speak. And we'll get into this a little bit more over the course of the next couple weeks and months. We'll talk more and more about it. Meat is a secondhand protein. Eat broccoli. I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or not. It's not really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. How do I feel about the keto diet? Keto is fine. Most people do it incorrectly. So if you're going to do a diet like that, then you must understand really how to get into ketosis and what ketosis is all about. A lot of people eat way too much protein on ketosis, and they eat too many carbs, and so you have to be careful. But you can. It's good. It's good. Do deadlifts really start at 135? What's this conversation coming from? Do they start at 135? No, they start at 0. What does that mean? What does that mean? What kind of question is that? Your beard looks rad. Absolutely. Let's see. David Garrett. I know I enjoy the longer ones because sometimes it helps to have someone show me how much of a dummy I am and the proactive ways to change. The longer ones, you mean the episodes? I'm not trying to show anyone. No one's a dummy here. We're just having a conversation. That's what the Daily Swole podcast is. Just different topics, talk about exercise, talk about a lot of different things. I flex, I pinch my nips, act like a fucking maniac. My friend is going to a keto state is difficult. It is difficult. Ketosis is difficult. Ketosis is when your body utilizes blood ketones for energy rather than sugar. So you're teaching your body how to use energy differently that it might not be accustomed to its entire life. So it takes several weeks. A lot of people think, I started the keto today. Okay, you started changing the way you eat. But that's a extreme change. All of a sudden changing the way you eat completely from one day to the next can be very challenging and very discomforting to your body, because your body doesn't have the bacterial profile, your body doesn't have the enzymes prepared for that extreme of a change of diet. So it should be done gradually. It should be also done, with it in mind that it's going to take a few weeks. You might have keto flu. You might have similar effects, like having the flu, runny nose, fever, feeling really run down, because as your body shifts what energy source it's using, it's just one of those things that is done very willy-nilly, so to speak. A lot of people just jump into the whole keto game without really understanding the ramifications and the extremity of what they're doing to their body. And once it starts getting a little challenging, of course, you're going to feel good. Your mind's going to feel clear. You're going to feel great because you're not consuming refined carbohydrates all of a sudden. So your mind's going to feel clear. You're going to feel great doing keto for the first few days, really across the board. Everyone reports that, right? Float some hearts or some comments if you did keto and you felt great the first week or the first few days. Most people do. But then it's like that second or third week where it starts getting hard because your body's actually shifting over into ketosis. That's when your body is like really resisting, like, wait, are we really not going back? This is really challenging. And it takes some time. But it can be very beneficial. And like I said, fat is not fat. What you're eating is not what's on your body. So you absolutely can do keto and see a lot of progress. Thanks for expanding my brain. You're welcome. Bombay Castro just joined Swolenormous X. Well, thank you for joining the fam, dude. Welcome. I think I saw that alert earlier this morning. That's right. Those of you that are in Swolenormous X, there's a brand new virtual trainer. There's a brand new leg workout called Lunge City that's available now in your account, in your library. So just go to the virtual trainer in your library, Swolenormous X members, and check out the leg workout. It's awesome. It's great. It's simple. You can adjust it. You can make it very, very challenging. You can make it extremely hypertrophy, or you could do more endurance, or you could do it more of like kind of like a cruise workout just by adding and reducing weights. It's a great workout. It's very simple. It's straightforward and can be used for mass or just kind of like a active recovery or more of an endurance workout. So I think you'll really like that. Not to mention the brand new the total yin and hips yoga class that I posted on Sunday. So both of those things are live now in Swolenormous X, and also there's going to be a new workshop tomorrow in Swolenormous X. So if you're interested in joining the family, click the link in my Instagram profile and also the post description here on Facebook. So swolenormousx.com. That's swolenormousx.com. What's a good portion size for red meat? Depends on your goals and your body size. Didn't they always say like a fist is approximately a good serving size? That depends what percentage of your diet you're making it. Best pre-workout drink and after workout food. You don't need a pre-workout if you feel like you need that caffeine boost. Just understand you're sucking down a lot of artificial chemicals. So that's up to you. That's a personal preference. I don't promote any of them. After workout, you can have your food with some carbs and protein. I don't like promoting protein shakes. Those aren't necessarily required. Food is great. Mesomorph is banned, by the way, for anyone that's wondering. If you really want Mesomorph, it's like $80. You can't find it on stores with the original formula. Those that are curious. And I'll do one more question. They're a waste of money. I do think a lot of supplements are a waste of money. I don't think there's no application for supplements. I take that stand generally that, but I'm not sitting here like, supplements are the devil. But most of you that want results, that are struggling with fat loss, that are looking for gains, like I need to build muscle, what should I take? Or, I'm trying to do this, what should I do? You're missing the nutrition point. Like either your training's not on point or your nutrition's not on point. Taking a supplement's not going to like make or break. That's very psychological. So most people take supplements or try dilly-dallying and dipping their toes in the water with supplements or going all in without knowing the fundamentals of their training or their nutrition. So that's not going to make up for having poor training habits and poor nutrition. Dennis Sutro, when doing intermittent fasting, will it still have a positive effect if I'm doing 8-16 5 days a week, or do I need to do it all week to benefit? Well, intermittent fasting is just that. It's intermittent. It's not consistent. So, intermittent fasting is interesting. A lot of people like it. If you're trying to bulk up a lot, I wouldn't do intermittent fasting. You generally need more calories. but not eating past 10 o'clock at night and just not eating till 12, I don't really find that intermittent fasting. That's just like skipping breakfast. I don't really understand how that garners a new term because you're not eating after 10 and you're not eating till noon. That doesn't equate to me an intermittent fast. That's just, okay, you're not eating breakfast. But if you do a little bit more of a deeper fast, if you do like an 18-6 where you don't eat for 18 hours and then you only eat within a 6-hour window, that's a little bit more of a fast. I would call that an intermittent fast because a fast is generally not eating for like multiple days in a row. And then intermittent fasting is just periods of non-consumption. So intermittent fasting could be good for some people. It could also cause you to overeat because you overeat within that window. You could still take in too many calories. So I would try that, Dennis. If you feel like you're not benefiting from it and you're taking the weekends off, like why would you do anything differently? Just keep it the same. You have to test that. You have to see for yourself which one you like better. Coffee or tea? I need more mental focus. You probably need more sleep and hydration. I like coffee. I also like tea. Quality coffee, there's nothing wrong with that. I stocked up on DMA, Mesomorph before it got banned. LOL. Nice. All right, fam. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 628 of the most muscular Swolecast in the realm. Because when I flex, you flex. We all flex our biceps. Every day live at 12 noon Eastern time. I'll catch you later on Instagram and Facebook. Remember, listen to the podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes. Make sure you check your email, and check on Instagram stories. I will post up when the podcast goes live, but make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcast as well as SoundCloud. That way you can be notified right when the podcast goes up, and you can enjoy when you're shoveling snow, mowing the lawn, your daily commute, when you're doing cardio, whenever you have headphones in or you want to jam with Papa Swole, you could throw on episode 628. So check me out there. Peace, McGee's fam. Deuce Magoose. Papa Swole. Out.